Intermittent fasting works, but only if you follow the right rules. Here is the truth that most people never hear. Fasting is powerful, but it can also quietly fail without clear signs. Many people skip meals, push through hunger, and still see zero results. The real problem is hidden in small mistakes that seem harmless but completely shut down fat burning. These mistakes keep insulin high, slow metabolism, and make the body hold on to fat even during long fasting hours. That is why some people lose weight quickly, while others stay stuck for months. This is where everything changes. There are 7 specific rules that control how your body responds to fasting. Miss even one, and progress slows down. Follow them correctly, and the body begins to switch into a completely different mode. Fat becomes the main fuel, hunger becomes easier to control. Energy becomes more stable. These are the results people talk about, but very few explain how to actually reach that point. In this video, you will learn the 7 rules that separate failure from real results. These are simple, but they are often ignored. You will discover why eating at the wrong time can cancel hours of fasting, why certain foods quietly block fat loss even in small amounts, and why consistency matters more than extreme effort. There is also a hidden factor that most people underestimate, and it can completely destroy progress even when everything else looks perfect. Once you understand this, fasting starts to feel easier and more effective. Stay with this video until the end, because the final rule is the one that most people miss, and it is often the reason they give up too early. This single mistake can make fasting feel exhausting and pointless, even though the solution is simple. When you understand all 7 rules together, everything starts to connect and the results become much more predictable. You are about to learn how to make intermittent fasting actually work the way it is supposed to. No confusion, no wasted effort, just clear steps that your body understands. Welcome to the channel, where simple health strategies are explained in a way that actually works. Subscribe now and stay with us for more videos that help you take control of your health and see real results. People start intermittent fasting with high expectations. They skip breakfast, delay meals, and stretch their fasting window, believing that longer fasting will automatically lead to faster fat loss. At first, it feels like progress is happening. The scale might even drop a little. But then something strange begins to happen. The weight stops moving. Days turn into weeks and nothing changes. This is where confusion starts to build. The effort is there, the discipline is there, but the results are missing. At the same time, the body begins to react in uncomfortable ways. Energy levels drop during the day, simple tasks start to feel harder than usual, hunger becomes stronger and more frequent, especially during the fasting window, cravings for sugar and processed foods slowly increase. By the time the eating window opens, it becomes difficult to control portions. This cycle repeats again and again, creating a feeling of being stuck. Frustration grows quickly in this phase. Many people begin to question the entire method. They start to believe that intermittent fasting is either too difficult or simply ineffective for their body. Some push harder, thinking more restriction will fix the issue. Others lose motivation completely and return to old habits. The problem feels like it is coming from fasting itself, but that is not where the real issue lies. What is actually happening is much deeper and less obvious. Small mistakes begin to add up. Eating too frequently during the eating window keeps insulin levels higher than expected. Choosing the wrong types of food triggers stronger hunger signals and slows down fat burning. Even small snacks or drinks that seem harmless can interrupt the fasting process without being noticed. The body never fully switches into the fat burning state, even after long hours without food. Sleep and stress also play a silent role in this struggle. Poor sleep increases hunger hormones, making fasting feel much harder than it should. Stress raises cortisol levels, which can block fat loss and increase cravings at the same time. These factors work in the background, making it seem like fasting is failing, while the real problem continues unnoticed. Everything starts to feel like a constant battle. Effort increases, but results stay the same. This is where most people get stuck, without realizing that a few key rules are quietly being broken. Intermittent fasting is powerful. in a way that most people do not fully understand at the beginning. It is not just about skipping meals or eating less food. It is about how the body shifts its internal state when it is given the right conditions. When fasting is done properly, the body starts to move away from constant sugar burning and begins to rely more on stored fat for energy. This shift changes how hunger feels, how energy is used, and how the body manages weight over time. It creates a system where fat loss becomes more natural instead of forced. At the same time, this process is very sensitive to small changes. The body responds differently depending on how fasting is structured. A small habit during the eating window can slow everything down. A simple choice in food can send completely different signals inside the body. Even the timing of meals can affect how hormones behave throughout the day. This is why some people see steady progress, while others feel like they are putting in the same effort with very different results. There is also a hidden layer that most people miss. Fasting is closely connected to hormones like insulin, cortisol, and hunger signals that control appetite and energy balance. When these are aligned, the body works with you. Hunger becomes manageable, energy feels stable, and fat burning becomes more efficient. When they are out of balance, the experience feels much harder. Hunger spikes unexpectedly, energy drops, and progress slows down without a clear reason. Understanding this difference changes the entire approach. It shifts the focus from simply fasting longer to fasting smarter. It becomes less about pushing through discomfort and more about creating the right environment inside the body. Small adjustments begin to matter more than extreme effort. The way meals are structured, the type of food that is eaten, and the consistency of daily habits all start to play a much bigger role. This is where clarity begins to replace confusion. Instead of guessing what might be going wrong, there is a clear path to follow. Each step has a purpose, and each rule supports the way the body is designed to function during fasting. As these pieces start to come together, the process begins to feel more controlled and predictable, opening the door to results that once felt out of reach. The first rule begins with understanding insulin and how it controls the entire fasting process. Intermittent fasting works because it gives the body time to lower insulin levels. When insulin drops, the body is finally able to access stored fat and use it as fuel. This is the state where real fat burning starts to happen. Without this shift, fasting becomes nothing more than skipping meals without any deeper metabolic change. The body stays in a pattern of storing energy instead of using it. The problem starts when insulin levels rise during the fasting period without being noticed. This can happen more easily than most people expect. Sugar is the most obvious trigger, but it is not the only one. Processed foods, sweet drinks, and even small snacks can send a signal that stops fat burning immediately. The body reacts quickly, releasing insulin to manage the incoming energy, and the fat burning process is paused. This can happen even if the amount of food feels small or insignificant. Many people believe that a small bite will not make a difference. A piece of candy, a few nuts, or a sip of a sweet drink may seem harmless during a long fasting window. In reality, these small actions can completely interrupt the process that fasting is trying to create. The body does not measure effort in hours alone. It responds to signals, and even a small signal can shift it out of the fat burning state. This is why some people fast for many hours but still struggle to see results. Hidden sources of sugar also play a role in keeping insulin higher than expected. Flavored drinks, certain coffee additions, and packaged foods often contain ingredients that trigger insulin without being obvious. These small details quietly work against the fasting process. The body remains in a mixed state where it is neither fully fasting nor fully fed, which makes fat loss slower and more difficult. As insulin stays elevated, the body continues to hold on to stored fat. Energy levels may rise briefly after eating, but they often drop again, leading to more hunger and more cravings. This creates a cycle where it becomes harder to stay consistent with fasting. Understanding how sensitive this process is helps explain why results can vary so much, even when the effort appears to be the same. The second rule focuses on what happens during the eating window, which is where many people unknowingly slow down their progress. There is a common belief that once the fasting period ends, Eating freely within the allowed time will still produce results. In reality, the frequency of eating during this window plays a major role in how the body responds. Every time food is consumed, insulin rises. When eating happens too often, insulin remains elevated for longer periods, which limits the body's ability to return to a fat burning state. Constant eating creates a cycle where the body never fully settles. A meal is followed by a snack, then another small bite, and sometimes another snack before the window closes. Each of these moments triggers a new insulin response. Even if the total amount of food does not seem excessive, the repeated spikes keep the body focused on processing incoming energy instead of using stored fat. This pattern quietly reduces the effectiveness of fasting even when the fasting hours are long. Many people fall into this habit without realizing it. Hunger can feel stronger after breaking a fast, which leads to more frequent eating. Cravings may increase, especially if the first meal is high in processed foods or sugar. This makes it easier to keep reaching for small portions throughout the eating window. The body stays in a constant fed state, and the natural rhythm that fasting is meant to create begins to fade. Shifting to fewer, more structured meals allows the body to respond differently. One or two proper meals give enough nutrition while also creating space between eating moments. This helps insulin rise and fall in a more controlled way. The body gets a clear signal when it is time to eat and when it is time to return to a lower insulin state. Over time, this pattern makes hunger more predictable and easier to manage. Eating less frequently also changes how full a person feels. Larger balanced meals tend to be more satisfying than multiple small snacks. This reduces the urge to keep eating and helps maintain a more stable routine. The body begins to adapt to this structure, making the entire fasting process feel more natural and less like a constant struggle. The third rule centers on the type of food that enters the body during the eating window. Not all calories behave the same way, and this is where many people lose progress without realizing it. Processed foods are designed to be easy to eat and quick to digest. They often contain refined sugars, unhealthy fats, and additives that trigger a rapid rise in insulin. This sudden spike creates a sharp increase in energy, followed by a quick drop that brings back hunger sooner than expected. The cycle continues, making it difficult to stay satisfied even after eating. When meals are built around processed food, the body struggles to maintain balance. Hunger returns faster, cravings become stronger, and portion control becomes harder to manage. Even when the total calorie intake seems controlled, the hormonal response tells a different story. Insulin rises quickly and stays elevated longer, which slows down the shift into fat burning. The body remains focused on using incoming energy instead of tapping into stored fat. Whole foods create a completely different response. Foods that are closer to their natural state take longer to digest and provide a more steady release of energy. Protein plays a key role in this process by helping maintain muscle and keeping hunger under control for longer periods. Healthy fats also support satiety, making meals more satisfying without causing sharp insulin spikes. Natural foods such as vegetables, eggs, meat, nuts, and unprocessed grains work together to create a more stable internal environment. As the body receives these types of foods, the signals begin to change. Hunger becomes less intense and more predictable. Energy levels stay more consistent throughout the day without sudden crashes. The urge to snack decreases because meals feel complete and filling. This makes it easier to stick to a structured eating pattern without relying on constant willpower. Focusing on quality over simple calorie counting shifts the entire approach to fasting. The body responds to the type of fuel it receives, and better fuel creates better outcomes. When meals are built around real nutrient dense foods, the fasting process becomes smoother, and the internal systems that control fat storage and energy use begin to work in a more balanced way. The fourth rule is often overlooked, yet it has a strong impact on how fasting feels throughout the day. Hydration plays a quiet but powerful role in controlling hunger, energy, and overall comfort during the fasting period. Many people go through their fasting hours feeling uneasy, low on energy, and constantly thinking about food without realizing that the body may simply need water. Thirst can easily disguise itself as hunger, creating a signal that feels like a need to eat when the real need is hydration. As the body becomes slightly dehydrated, it begins to send mixed signals. The mouth may feel dry, energy can drop, and the mind starts to focus on food as a solution. This confusion leads to unnecessary snacking or breaking the fast earlier than planned. Even during the eating window, low hydration can increase cravings and make it harder to feel satisfied after meals. The body continues to search for relief, and food becomes the default response. Drinking enough water throughout the day helps stabilize these signals. It supports digestion, keeps the body functioning smoothly, and reduces the intensity of false hunger cues. During fasting hours, water can create a sense of fullness that makes it easier to stay consistent. Instead of constantly battling cravings, the experience becomes more manageable and less stressful. There are also simple ways to make fasting feel smoother without breaking the process. Black coffee and plain tea are often used during fasting because they provide a mild boost in alertness while keeping insulin levels low. They can help reduce the feeling of fatigue that sometimes appears in the early stages of fasting. At the same time, they offer a sense of routine, which can make the fasting window feel shorter and more structured. As hydration improves, the body starts to respond differently. Hunger becomes less urgent, energy feels more stable, and the overall fasting experience becomes easier to maintain. Small habits like drinking water regularly can change how the entire process feels, turning something that once felt difficult into something more controlled and sustainable over time. The fifth rule focuses on consistency, which is often the difference between short term effort and long term results. Many people approach intermittent fasting with bursts of motivation. They follow the routine strictly for a few days, sometimes even pushing themselves to extend fasting hours beyond what feels comfortable. In the beginning, this effort feels productive, but the pattern rarely lasts. After a few days, the routine breaks, meals become irregular, and the structure that fasting depends on begins to fade. This cycle repeats, creating progress that starts and stops without building momentum. Skipping days may seem harmless at first, especially when life becomes busy or energy feels low. One missed day turns into two, and soon the routine feels inconsistent. The body responds to this lack of pattern by staying in a mixed state. It does not fully adapt to fasting, and it does not settle into a stable rhythm of eating either. This makes the process feel unpredictable, where some days feel easy and others feel much harder without a clear reason. A consistent routine allows the body to adjust over time. When fasting and eating windows follow a steady pattern, internal signals begin to align. Hunger starts to appear at similar times each day, making it easier to manage. Energy levels become more stable because the body learns when to expect food and when to rely on stored energy. This adaptation reduces the feeling of struggle that many people experience in the early stages. There is also a mental shift that comes with consistency. Instead of relying on motivation, which often changes from day to day, the routine becomes part of daily life. Decisions feel simpler because the structure is already in place. There is less need to think about when to eat or when to stop, which removes a layer of stress from the process. Over time, this steady approach creates progress that builds slowly but remains stable. Even when results seem slow, maintaining the routine allows small changes to accumulate. The body continues to adapt in the background, improving how it handles hunger, energy, and fat use. This steady progression creates a stronger foundation, making it easier to continue without feeling overwhelmed or constantly restarting. The sixth rule brings attention to two factors that often stay in the background but strongly influence results: stress and sleep. Many people focus only on food and fasting hours while ignoring how the body reacts to daily pressure and rest. When stress levels rise, the body releases cortisol, a hormone designed to help handle challenging situations. In short bursts, this response is useful, but when stress becomes constant, cortisol remains elevated for longer periods. This creates internal conditions that make fat loss much harder to achieve. As cortisol stays high, the body begins to hold on to energy instead of using it efficiently. Fat storage becomes more likely, especially around the midsection, while fat burning slows down even during fasting hours. At the same time, stress can increase cravings for high energy foods, especially those rich in sugar and refined carbohydrates. This creates a pattern where the body is pushed toward eating more while also becoming less effective at using stored fat. The combination makes progress feel slow and unpredictable. Sleep plays an equally important role in this process. When sleep quality is poor or sleep duration is too short, the body struggles to regulate hunger hormones. Signals that control appetite become unbalanced, leading to stronger feelings of hunger throughout the day. It becomes harder to feel satisfied after meals, and the urge to snack increases. Even with a structured fasting routine, this imbalance can make it difficult to stay consistent. Low quality sleep also affects energy levels in a noticeable way. The body feels tired, focus becomes weaker, and simple tasks require more effort. During fasting hours, this lack of energy can make the experience feel much more difficult than it should be. The natural rhythm that supports fasting begins to break down, and the process feels like a constant struggle rather than a steady routine. As stress and sleep continue to influence the body, their effects build over time. Hormones remain out of balance, hunger signals stay elevated, and fat loss slows down without a clear visible cause. These internal changes happen quietly, often going unnoticed while the focus stays on food and fasting alone. The seventh rule focuses on time, which is often the most underestimated part of intermittent fasting. Many people begin with the expectation of quick results. They follow the routine for a few days and look for immediate changes on the scale or in the mirror. When those changes do not appear as fast as expected, doubt starts to build. The effort feels real, but the outcome seems delayed, creating a sense that something is missing. In reality, the body does not switch instantly into a new system. It needs time to adjust to a different pattern of eating and fasting. At the start, the body is still used to relying on frequent meals for energy. Hunger signals may feel stronger, and energy levels may fluctuate more than expected. This phase can feel uncomfortable, especially for those who are used to eating often throughout the day. The body is slowly learning to access stored fat, but this shift does not happen in a single step. During the first few days, the experience can feel challenging. Hunger may appear at usual meal times, even if the body does not truly need food. Cravings can increase as the body searches for quick sources of energy. There may be moments of low energy or difficulty focusing. These responses are part of the adjustment process as the body begins to change how it produces and uses energy. Over time, these signals start to calm down as the body becomes more efficient. As the days pass, subtle changes begin to develop. Hunger becomes less intense and more predictable. The body starts to rely more on stored energy, which creates a steadier flow of fuel throughout the day. This gradual shift allows fasting to feel more natural instead of forced. The routine becomes easier to follow as the internal systems begin to align with the new pattern. Progress builds in small steps that are not always immediately visible. The body continues to adapt in the background, improving how it manages energy and fat storage. This steady adjustment requires patience as each day adds to the overall change. The process becomes smoother with time, and the initial difficulty slowly turns into a more stable and manageable routine. So, if intermittent fasting has not been working the way you expected, the problem is deeper than it seems. It is easy to blame the method itself when results feel slow or inconsistent, but the real reason often stays hidden in small details that are easy to miss. It is not because fasting is ineffective, it is because one or more of these rules are quietly being ignored. Each rule plays a specific role, and when even one is out of place, the entire process starts to break down. The body responds to signals, and when those signals are mixed, progress becomes unpredictable. When these rules are followed together, everything begins to change. Hunger becomes easier to manage, energy feels more stable, and the body starts working with you instead of against you. The difference is not in doing more, but in doing it correctly. Small adjustments create a big shift over time, and that is where real results begin to show. Now it comes down to you. Which of these rules are you breaking right now without realizing it? Take a moment and think about your routine. Drop your answer in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else understand what they are missing. If you found this helpful and learned something new, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for simple health tips that actually work and help you get real results.